It's quite simple for an organization to reach the decision that it wants to improve quality. However, without a set of standards to guide its improvement efforts, the company may struggle to decide where to start. ISO is a non-governmental worldwide organization that encompasses the national standards institutes of more than 158 countries. Officially, the organization is known as the International Organization for Standardization. However, since the name would be abbreviated differently in several countries, the acronym ISO was chosen based upon the Greek word isos, which means equal. The ISO 9000 series was developed to help organizations effectively design and implement efficient quality systems. The series consists of individual yet interrelated standards that complement each other and act as a framework that can provide auditable requirements for companies that want to complete registration. Originally published in 1987, the ISO 9000 series has undergone revisions in 1994, 2000, and 2005, with the most recent revision creating standards for definitions, requirements, and continual improvement. The ISO 9000 series has become an international recognized language for quality, and three concepts are universal to all markets. The ISO standards are voluntary, market-driven, and based on consensus. Because ISO is a non-governmental organization, it doesn't have the authority to legally require companies to follow the standards. Thus, ISO is voluntary. However, some countries have adopted certain standards, health, safety, or environmental, for instance, as part of their regulatory framework. In such cases, even though ISO standards are voluntary, they may become a market requirement. ISO standards are market-driven. This means that standards are developed when there is a market requirement, which is determined by a group of experts in the field who have asked for a particular standard. Because ISO standards are based on consensus among interested groups, they are ensured widespread applicability. The standards are regularly reviewed at least once every 5 years to determine whether they should be modified, maintained, or withdrawn. The ISO 9000 standards are based on 8 principles of quality management that can be applied by senior managers to improve their organizations. First, customer focus. Customers are the backbone of most organizations, as they are dependent upon to purchase goods and services. Companies should have a good understanding of their customers' needs and do their best to meet these requirements. For example, a media company conducted a month-long study of its customers' needs and realized it was not placing enough emphasis on providing customer support. The company was able to remedy this problem to improve customer relations. Effective leadership is vital to ISO 9000 quality principle, since leaders determine a company's direction and purpose. When leadership creates an environment in which employees want to be involved in achieving organizational objectives, everyone is inspired to produce quality results. When the media company that we have used as an example realized that customers were unhappy with its services, leadership had to get frontline employees on board with the needed changes. To do so, a reward system was created to recognize customer service representatives who were especially helpful to customers, which inspired all employees to provide exceptional service. Involvement of an organization's people is a key ISO 9000 quality management principle. When employees of all levels are involved in improving the company, a variety of talents and abilities can be used for the benefit of the company's quality improvement efforts. The media company held a meeting with all the employees to outline the problems it was having with customers' dissatisfaction. All staff were encouraged to become involved with improving service and overall quality. Taking a process approach to quality management means that all inputs, outputs, and resources related to a company's activities are managed as a process. Our example, the media company revised the process it used to field customer complaints in its call center so that one standardized process existed, which led to greater efficiency and understanding among all employees involved with call center operations. So from these examples, we see that when the media company realized that its customers were unhappy with the service it provided, it was able to use ISO 9000 quality principles to improve leadership, focus on its customers, encourage employee involvement, and use a process approach to quality management. These principles enable the organization to find new ways of keeping its customers satisfied. Now, there are more principles to come, but let's see if the first 4 are clear. Senior managers can use ISO 9000 quality principles to improve their organizations. This is something we know. Match ISO 9000 series quality principles to the following examples. We have these options: customer focus, leadership, involvement, and process approach, and these targets. A retailer conducted a survey to determine what products clients wanted. Second example, a retailer's management fosters a work environment that inspires employees. Third example, a retailer's employees actively participate in all quality improvement efforts. And the last one, a retailer rethinks its inventory management system to improve efficiency. Stop the video and try to figure out the right answer based on the previous presentation. Okay, let's see now. This is an example of customer focus. Companies should have a good understanding of their customers' needs and do their best to meet these requirements. This is an example of leadership, when management creates an environment in which employees want to be involved in achieving organizational objectives. Everyone is inspired to produce quality results. The third one is an example of involvement, when employees of all levels are involved in improving the company. A variety of talents and abilities can be used for the company's benefit. The last one, this is an example of process approach, which means that all inputs, outputs, and resources related to a company's activities are managed as a process. So to conclude this exercise, senior managers have these 4 ISO 9000 quality management principles at their disposal to use for organizational development. Great! If you have found the same connections, you're right. Now the rest of the ISO 9000 principles. Taking a system approach to management is a key ISO quality management principle and entails identifying, understanding, and managing the interrelated processes that enable an organization to meet its objectives. The media company, our example, focused on all the processes that made up its customer support system. This included handling incoming calls, answering return requests, and meeting customers in person. By managing these interrelated processes, the company improved its customer support system. Continual improvement should always be an organization's goal and should encompass everything it does. The media company realized that one-time improvement in customer care would not be acceptable. Instead, it implemented a solution that involved several smaller changes that would result in long-term improvements. Using a factual approach to decision-making means that decisions are based on the analysis of data and information, not on hunches or theories. When the media company decided to rethink its customer service process, it based its decision on the fact that actual numbers of complaints had increased. And the last and very important principle, an organization's relationships with its suppliers should be beneficial for all the parties involved, which means that even though the 2 or more parties involved are independent of each other, a good relationship can enable them all to create value. The media company changed suppliers when it realized that although the current supplier offered the lowest prices, customers were unhappy with the quality of its products. So this was not a beneficial relationship for all the parties involved, but the new supplier's products have not yet received complaints. So the media company was able to use the remaining ISO 9000 quality principles to take a system approach to management, focus on continual improvement efforts, use facts as a basis for decision-making, and form a mutually beneficial supplier relationship. These principles will enable the organization to continue to improve the ways in which it meets its customers' needs. Let's see now if the last 4 principles are clear. The question is the following. ISO 9000 quality principles can improve organizations in several ways. Match the ISO 9000 series quality principles to the examples. And we have again some options: a system approach to management, continual improvement, factual approach to decision-making, and mutually beneficial supplier relationship. And the number of 4 targets to match with. A retailer examined all the processes that made up its inventory procurement strategy. A retailer implements a long-term solution that will reduce the wait times for customers. In the last 2, a retailer examines the results of a focus group session to determine where improvements should be made. In the last one, a retailer has worked with the same wholesaler for years because they create value for each other. Now let's check if we have the same answers. First is an example of a system approach to management, which entails identifying, understanding, and managing the interrelated processes that enable an organization to meet its objectives. This is an example, the second one, of continual improvement, which should always be an organization's goal. It should encompass everything it does. The third one is an example of a factual approach to decision-making, which means that decisions are based on the analysis of data and information, not on hunches or theories. The last one, this is an example of mutually beneficial supplier relationship. An organization relationships with its suppliers should enable them both to create value. So now you know what ISO 9000 series is and what are its principles. Next, a presentation of ISO 9001 benefits and how to work with this standard.